ADHD reWired, episode 400.
Part 1.
This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD reWired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups, and you can learn all about our intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. You can do all of this at our website, ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD reWired. We are here celebrating our 400th episode, which is kind of crazy to me. And so we put together a group of people that have been a part of our community and to celebrate this with us. And, you know, for a number of weeks leading up to this 400th episode, I kept thinking, you know, how am I going to mark episode 400? And maybe it was some of my perfectionism, but I could not come up with anything. So in very ADHD fashion, I think it was posted last night in our coaching community. It might have even been this morning. There's an invitation to join me for the recording of episode 400. So I want to thank, we got about 11 people here. So I just want to thank all of you in advance for being here, and especially you, the listener, who, whether you have started listening to us recently or been listening to us for a while, thank you for being part of this journey with us. Okay, so what we want to do, I have kind of came up with a couple questions, and we can kind of go in a number of different places with this. So the first half of today's conversation, we're going to be kind of sharing stories about your experiences as being a part of ADHD reWired, whether first as a listener, then a member of our coaching communities. And then the second half, we are going to do a little bit of, I guess, a mastermind around ideas for the next 400 episodes of this podcast. So I would definitely encourage everyone to stick around for that as well. And on the show notes part of this episode for ADHDrewired.com/400, on the comments area, if you have, as a listener, ideas that you want to share about things that we can potentially do on the podcast, share them with us. We would love to hear your thoughts. All right. So I think I asked this question at one of the podcast episodes that we were marking some kind of benchmark number. Maybe it was 200. But the question was, how do you get your ADHD rewired? So would anyone like to sort of contribute to that question and share their thoughts on that?
So the one thing that I learned was just reaching out whenever I am, need to be rewired or am, stuck. I will send a message to my A-team, accountability team, or other people from the group that can kind of help me talk through it, or just, say it, put it out there so that I can get myself unstuck and feel more accountable for getting off the couch.
So it's kind of showing up, being seen, and putting yourself out there.
Right.
Who else would like to share how they get their ADHD rewired, or what it means to you when you hear that? Hey everyone, it's Will Kerr from Hacking Your ADHD.
Hi everybody. So what this really made me think of is one of the skills that I've learned to do now is to ask a lot of more questions when I have some sort of difficulty, rather than just being, oh, that's just how things are. Because when I got diagnosed with ADHD, I didn't do any of the skills part. So I spent 8 years after diagnosis doing nothing to treat my ADHD beside medication, which I took irregularly because I had no skills to back up taking the medication. So a lot of that was just like, oh, this is just how things are. Then going through the course and talking to other people, I'm like, oh, I can do things about a lot of these things. I can ask, is this how things just are, or are there things I can do about it? And there's still plenty of times in my life where I'm not asking questions just because I'm not thinking about it. Like, oh, getting out the door is hard because that's how it is. But then if I slow down and go, why particularly is getting out the door hard for me? And that really does the whole rewiring of my brain going, oh, I just need to do things in a different order, or I need to have things set up in a certain way so it's easy for me to get out the door.
I love that. It was sort of the embodiment of the pursuit of growth mindset.
Exactly.
Anyone else? Gail.
The biggest piece of me getting my ADHD rewired is accepting the ADHD and embracing it. This is part of me. It's not like I have this collection of challenges and faults that I just have to beat myself up over for years and years. I was late diagnosed. When I finally knew that all these things that I had challenges with fall under this ADHD umbrella, and then I was able to find Eric. The whole step one to me is accept it and embrace it and love who I am. Love this part of myself where it's really myself. It's no part, it's everything. And then, of course, learning the tools, which was amazing. So that's number one, acceptance.
Thanks, Gail.
Thanks.
Brendan, it's Brendan Mahan from ADHD Essentials. And you're muted. He's a rookie.
Can I be oppositional?
Of course.
You didn't rewire my ADHD, but you completely rewired my professional life, which I think is bigger in a lot of ways. Because the way we connected was, I was listening to your show like early on, like single and double digit stuff, and you would talk about this coaching group, and so I was like, I want to figure out how does he do what he does? Like, what is that all about? And so I signed up for, I think it was ARC 3. It might have been ARC 2.
I think it was 2.
Was it 2? Okay.
Yeah.
And so I bummed money off my dad because I was unemployed at the time, and like signed up for ARC 2. And then and really I signed up for ARC 2 for 2 reasons. One was to like figure out what you knew that I didn't know. And at the time I was hip deep in learning about ADHD. So like that, I want to start there. I don't want to say like you didn't rewire my ADHD because you don't know anything. Like I was already doing ADHD professional work and coaching people and stuff. So I sign up, and I was like, back then I thought to get on a podcast was way harder than it actually is. Cause I was like, I'll sign up for his group and like get to know him, and then he'll bring me on the show and I can talk about the Wall of Awful that I think is a pretty good model. Right. Like, cause that's where the Wall of Awful first made its public appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And so that led to like our friendship, and it led to being connected with you, and you kind of watched what I was doing as I sort of fumbled and flailed to get a job as a guidance counselor. And eventually I was doing mental health work, and then I was doing some special ed work, and then that was a temporary gig, so it sort of petered out. And you were like, Brendan, seriously, just run parent groups and start a podcast, and you'll come do stuff with me. And I was like, all right, cool. And that was when you were buying your house, and we had this whole conversation where I was like, cool, I'm going to come on board. And you were like, what? But it panned out. It played out really well, because I am where I am now because you just kept pushing me and sort of goading me to do it. And so thank you.
You're
Like,
welcome.
It's awesome.
That's awesome.
And of course there's been ADHD rewiring here and there, but it's like small stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, no, I should totally be time blocking. Like, why have I not been doing that? It's those kinds of strategies.
But don't you think that all of our sort of big things is actually just small things that stack on each other?
Yeah, completely.
And I remember, Brendan, that session that when you were a coaching group member and you shared your Wall of Awful model. And I actually remember getting this like sort of warm wash, like goosebump feeling all over my body. I was like, that is brilliant. And like, people have to hear this. I just remember this very like visceral, exciting feeling. I was like, holy shit, like this guy's going to do something. And I got to make sure he knows
Thank
that. And look what you've done. It's fantastic.
Yay. Because I totally didn't know that.
That's awesome. All right. Kristen.
Hi. So for me, getting the ADHD rewired, it's really been about identifying what those functions I do are a manifestation of my ADHD brain and thinking. And I don't think I would have ever like I was probably diagnosed about 6 years ago and didn't really find your podcast till a couple of years ago through a friend. And I don't think I realized that until I joined this community. So to me, it's about the course and then the community and understanding those things. I'm a mental health therapist. I'm supposed to really understand ADHD, but I work with kids. And so I was just thinking of those big things. There are so many smaller picture things that once I've identified it, then I'm able to find tools and put them into practice and make them my own. And that has been what's been the biggest help for me.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. All right, Xavier.
I think one big thing for me rewiring my ADHD has just coming to acceptance. I think growing up, I've had a lot of things that I saw as coping mechanisms. That'd be jumping in and like teaching my classmates how to do the math problems. I generally had like a little bit more comfort in certain subjects. I'd help fill their gaps and they'd help buddy focus, kind of like the things that we do in ASH. But I realized that's not a coping mechanism in the normal sense. I think it's really just a solution that just hadn't been embraced at that time. I think that's what I'm coming to now. I think these days I love teaching. I work at a rock climbing gym where I teach adults how to belay, how to control the safety rope, and I get to teach kids how to climb and enjoy using their whole body and getting the energy out. And it's just such a blast. So leaning into the things that I thought was like me trying to survive and like accepting like that's just me thriving. I'm trying to be beautiful. And I hope you appreciate that too. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And it's totally the big acceptance piece.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. You know, it's funny when I first started the podcast. I know I've shared this in the past a while ago, but some people might not know this. I think it was about a few days before I launched the podcast. I did a name change to the podcast. The podcast was going to be called ADHD Brain Wired Differently. And I was literally, I like very much remember like being in the shower and going, oh my God, that is way too long. And you know, so this idea of ADHD rewired, like on one hand, it's almost a misconception because it's never done, right? And so the idea of rewired being like, oh, we're done, we're fixed. Like, no, like growth is this, we're constantly growing, right? Like I'm a huge believer that the moment we stop growing is when we start dying. But then this idea of just what does it mean? Because the idea of wiring or rewiring is this idea of neuroplasticity, that we are capable of changing the way our brain works, right? But we think about what has shown to be one of the most impactful things, I think, in my life, I think personally and professionally, is the power of connection. And I think about wiring connection. We're on episode 400. We're about to hit, I think it's 3 million downloads. It's 3 or 4 million. How ADHD is that I'm not even 100% sure like which million it is, but I know we're about to hit the next million, whatever it is. You know, I've had 700 plus people go through our coaching program, and how many people have connected as a result of the podcast or the Facebook community or our coaching community or now our adult study hall community. Right? It's like everything that we do here is about community. Because I think that something that we can all, I think, relate to is that sort of horrible feeling of feeling alone and not understood. And I think once we can sort of like, in a sense, get naked with each other in a metaphorical way, being very vulnerable, see each other without judgment, that's when the growth happens. We're like, oh, you know what? Yeah. I have warts, you have warts, like we all have our imperfections and we're also all great. And often we don't see our greatness until it's reflected back from others. And I think that's what sorry, so I was totally just distracted by the chat. They're all now cracking up about my getting naked thing. And then someone asked, does it have to be metaphorical? Well, and then someone else asked, where's my poll? I won't out who that was. Oh my gosh. You all are just trying to distract me. No, we are not taking our clothes off now. Okay, I am moving the chat window to my other screen so I can no longer see the shenanigans that you're trying to throw me curveballs with. And so let's shift a little bit here. I actually want to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the stories for you individually that have stood out the most for you when you think about whether it was in the beginning of, when you first started listening to the podcast or any moments that you've been a part of this community. What's been most kind of meaningful for you or most impactful? So we'll take a quick break and we will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from ADHD reWired's coaching and accountability groups, our award-winning 10-week program made for and by adults with ADHD. Support also comes from our Alumni membership community, which includes members who have completed our coaching groups who not only support the show, but also support our members who join us every season. Here at ADHD reWired, the mission of our coaching groups is to empower our members and create a safe and supportive environment that's shame-free so that they can learn effective ADHD-friendly ways to live a more productive and wholehearted life. We had our first registration kickoff event last Saturday, and spots are already being filled. So if you want to join the ADHD reWired coaching and accountability groups, go now to coachingrewired.com and add your name to our winter interest list. Once you get your name on the interest list, keep an eye out in your email for instructions on how you can join us this winter. Don't wait. Get your name on our interest list by heading on over now to coachingrewired.com. Our next registration event for our winter season is on Thursday, November 11th at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. That is Veterans Day for those of us in the U.S. Registration is by invitation only. So if you don't want to miss your chance to join us for our next registration event on Thursday, November 11th, then don't wait. Kick off the new year by joining us for our winter coaching season starting January of 2022. The journey with ADHD may be a winding road, but you don't have to go on that journey alone. That's coachingrewired.com. We can't wait to meet you. Looking for some more ADHD ear candy? Check out all the other podcasts on the ADHD reWired Podcast Network by going to ADHDrewired.com/podcast network, where you can also subscribe and share all of our shows. This is the podcast network for people with ADHD by people with ADHD. We want to thank all of you, our listeners, for tuning in each and every week. And if you want to hang out with us, you can. Join us for a live Q&A by going to ADHDrewired.com/events. Our next live Q&A is on Tuesday, November 9th. That's next week, where you can join us live on Zoom to ask your ADHD-related questions. That's ADHDrewired.com/events to register. We appreciate every single one of you, especially Milady of Scott and social strategy expert and Cleo0414 and Michael Unbroken and One Special Edward and Commando Captain and the nearly 800 listeners who have taken the time to give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And I'd like to thank you, who I'm pretty sure who has been thinking about doing it for a while, but decided that today would be the day that you will leave a review. Thank you in advance. You're awesome. Your reviews help because it helps put this podcast in front of other people's earballs. Thank you for listening, for sharing, for subscribing, and for leaving those ratings and reviews. We love that you're a part of us, a part of our podcast family. It's been so fun growing with all of you. You guys.
That was awesome.
All right.
You did it. You brought up being naked.
We're all adults
You mean
here.
you mean it's not about getting naked?
We're a bunch of visual thinkers, so come on.
It's in the
First
calendar.
time
It's
a
12-year-old.
the only reason I'm here.
I thought naked was the requirement at the first class.
Right. This is
Oh,
true.
God.
Gail really did.
Yeah, it's for anyone who doesn't know.
Oh, my
showed
God.
Eric, we may all be adults, but we all have a developmental delay here.
It's,
Please.
and we're back.
Yeah.
Okay. So, it's actually really funny because in our coaching community once a month, we have a happy hour that we do on Zoom. And it is just like the epitome of like things that people like probably shouldn't say, but yet we all say and it's okay. And it's like, well, what's I think our unofficial tagline of our happy hour is
ADHD. We make things weird.
I like that you went from naked to happy hour like that.
let's talk about some stories of maybe overcoming something really challenging or something that really helped you have maybe a significant mindset shift. So just kind of think back for a moment about different parts of your ADHD kind of rewired journey. Is there anything that really stands out to you as a significant moment?
Significant moment in the rewired program, I'll tell you. We were doing what's called a mastermind, and it was my first mastermind, and I didn't really understand what it was, but I wanted to quit a million times before I did it because I was the first one in my team to go, and I had to fill out this form, and I didn't understand the instructions, and everything about this totally tripped my ADHD wire, which I didn't really believe that I had going in. I kind of thought I did, but I wasn't really sure. This made me realize, oh my gosh, like I've been almost crippled for so long and just faking it, like don't want people to know to what degree I'm not getting it. And the mastermind content was about, I ended up not quitting. I ended up powering through. And I made it to mastermind day. And the question I wanted to mastermind was about my writing, because I'm a professional writer who's hit some major blocks. And before the program, I didn't know if I'd ever write again. So I was looking for some clarity about what I should do and if I'm still a writer or if I should move on. And I would say that whatever happened in that mastermind, I don't remember. It was a half hour, but it was recorded. And I watched it again and took notes. And I had so many ideas that I couldn't believe I hadn't thought of before. Like, I really thought my career was over. Like, I really thought this is the end. You know, you're old, you're getting older, just accept it. This is just a new phase of your life. The storm of ideas and creativity that came to me during that mastermind, I feel like it's changed my life forever. And what I have to keep remembering, what is the most important thing in this program to me, is that I have to work it constantly.
Yeah.
Because if you leave it, it leaves you. I can't leave this. I have to stay in this community. I have to talk about all these things. I have to keep this program so active in my life that I can, it's for life or it's going to be a very big problem. I will tell you that. So I guess that's what I have to say about my story.
Thank you, Pam. Getting me choked up just listening to that. That's amazing. I often say that, as people with ADHD, like we don't have the luxury of going through any part of life on autopilot. We will crash and burn. We have to be, looking at our lists and remembering and just when we do that, when we're like, oh yeah, like we have ADHD brains, like we just have to move through life a little bit differently and not worse, just different. Have you written anything significant since your mastermind?
Well, I started writing. That's the thing.
Awesome.
I started. And you know what I realized too? It's that it's not about being professional anymore. It's about, I'm a writer. And whether I make a living at it or not, I'm a writer. And I have to continue to write or I'll lose my mind. And so even if I never work professionally again, I'm writing now, which feels to me like a miracle. I can't impress upon you enough how unbelievable this feeling is. And listen, I don't think I'm doing a great job. I have to say, I don't think I'm like writing a masterpiece. I'm totally not. And some days, even today, I was so bummed out. I was like, I think this mountain's too big.
I think that this idea is so good that I'm not the writer to do it because I'm not good enough. I mean, all the things that occur to me. And then it's just like, you know what? I have to keep showing up. That's all I can do. I cannot leave this program. Like you said, if I think I can go on autopilot, if I think that I learned all the lessons, I'm just beginning to learn the lessons. This has been such a humbling program, but it's been life-changing for me. I can't thank you enough, Eric. You changed my life.
Oh, thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Oh man, having the feels big time. Xavier.
Yeah, I feel really similar to how Pam felt on a few things. The biggest thing that I tried to overcome during ARC was a really big move. I remember when I listened to the podcast that really got me interested in joining the ARC coaching program. I remember thinking like, there's just too much going on in my life, and I cannot do this. I cannot bring more work into my brain right now. And I remember then hearing you say you felt like a common thread through the coaching program was transitions and these big moments that a lot of people are going through. And looking back now, I realize I would not be nowhere near as stable if I had chosen to wait that one extra season and say, all right, you know what? After this is over, then I'll join. Because so many of the tools that we talked about were just normalizing things that I wanted to embrace, but I didn't have the confidence of. So many things that I was told to repress. And also just having access to the minds that understand exactly what it's like to go through this on a daily basis and try and work through those strategies.
Mm.
Yeah, if I didn't have the like total mentality shift when I was trying to plan for my move, creating that timeline, breaking up all of the things in my apartment into smaller lists, breaking them down into which trip, which day, I don't think I'd have the like perfect apartment that I'm in now. And I definitely wouldn't feel confident saying no to somebody as they invite me over to a job, because I feel more confident that I can make something better for myself because now I have these tools. I can say no because I know something is better out there for me. I'm manifesting something better.
That's awesome, Xavier.
Thanks so much.
I remember how like impressed I was when on your move you went and moved, and then you joined the meeting from your car, if I recall. Like I was just like so impressed with your dedication. I was like, oh my God, like moving is like it was one of my worst experiences of my life. I cannot imagine like honoring other commitments in the middle of a move. I was just really, really impressed by that. Tina?
From the program, one of the things that probably was the biggest change for me, there were quite a few, but the masking and the trying to be perceived as normal, or I can do it all, which I was like, how do people do this? How do people like survive in this world? Like, and actually have friends and like do stuff outside, I did not understand how that was possible. So just letting go of trying to be perfect, like being okay with people seeing who I was. This is just who I am. Like, it's okay. I don't have to be anybody else. Yes, nobody's perfect, but like, it's okay if my place is somewhat of a disaster or whatever. Like, they're coming to see me. There are things that are on my priorities there are goals that I have that, going through the program taught me to actually have goals. Before that, I didn't give myself grace or give myself the maybe luxury or idealism of being able to have a goal or have a bucket list, because it was always just in the moment. How can I get through today? So I didn't realize how much that was holding me back from doing anything that I possibly could want to do in the future. And I think the other thing is this community helped me to normalize it. I didn't really notice anybody else. I didn't know anyone else that I had spoken with about ADHD. I didn't know anyone that had it. Like I said, that I had had a conversation with. Maybe people had it, but I didn't know. So I never talked about it. And having a community that I could find other people that were just like me and normalize it. I think that was a huge part of taking down my mask and being okay with anybody seeing who I was. Gets rid of the shame behind it, the fear of not being normal. And then, just giving myself that grace to be who I am. And that's okay. It also helped with my career. I was able to stand up for myself and say no to things because I was overworked, because I was constantly trying to please other people or act like I could do it all. And in reality, I was doing more than other people were doing, I think, at the time, because I was just I was nonstop, you know? So yeah, I mean, this made me realize, you know what, I might have my hyper focus and then I could take a break and I can regulate my energy and I can say no.
Sounds like you learn that there's more to life than just getting things done.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for sharing that, Tina. Brendan?
Yeah, no, I know I've already said that, like, you were like, just start a podcast. But it's important to me that, like, it's not like I hadn't had that thought before, right? So, but I didn't start a podcast, largely because I have a very will you start my orange approach to life, which I think a lot of ADHD people have, right? Like, I'll gladly eat an orange, but if it isn't started, I'm not going to peel it. Like, I need someone to break that skin for me, and then I'll peel the rest of it off. You don't even have to rip the thing all the way off. Just give me a little crack and I'll peel the whole orange and I'll eat it. But if someone doesn't start the orange for me, it's going to sit on the counter and rot. And so you didn't just say, Brendan, start a podcast, right? You were like, here's how. This is the mic you want to buy. This is like kind of sort of how this stuff works. And that's why the podcast started. Like, because I didn't have any idea what to do with that. And the parent groups were easier because I was like, oh, this is curriculum design. I'm a teacher, right? Like I could figure that part out. But I zero concept of what to do on the technical side with the podcast. And you guided me through all of that stuff. And that's why the ADHD Essentials podcast exists, is because you were literally this mic that is in front of my face right now and these headphones that are on my head. You were like, buy those.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, cool. I will buy those then. And now I need to upgrade, I think. But
Nice.
But yeah, no. So thank you.
Awesome. And I'm sure that Will could also tell you that this Rodecaster that we have is a pretty amazing piece of equipment. So if you're looking for something like that, because how else, Brendan, could I just at the push of a button get the sound of your voice? Oh, wait, I got to turn my dial up for that to work. Take two. The sound of your voice.
Hello.
There it is, right? I just cued it right there.
I need to redo my intro. It's 207 episodes old. It's time for something different.
Can I just add, Brendan, that laugh was very Halloween-y, like maniacal laugh. Loved it. That should be a button on that board.
Make every effort.
All right, so here's a question. Maybe this isn't on our list of potential things we could talk about. Do any of you have questions that you would like to ask me? Pam.
Yeah, I love your episodes where you talk about products. What are your favorite things that you can buy to help your ADHD, whether it's a whiteboard or a gadget? Like what are your implements, your physical tools that you love?
So so this year I bought what I would say is one of my very favorite pieces of technology that I've purchased in many, many years. It's like tangentially related to helping my ADHD, but it just partially, it brings me a lot of joy. And that is the hell's the brand of it? I love it so much that oh my gosh. Hold on. I have it in my bag.
It's like you have ADHD or something.
It's the Jbl Flip 5 speaker. Like I'll tell you why I love this thing. So I like having, whether it's a podcast or music, and I don't want to have my headphones on all the time because then I can't hear stuff around me. Like first of all, the sound of this thing, it's literally like the size of like imagine like an Arizona can of iced tea, about that size. This thing sounds amazing. Like I have a surround sound system in my house. I actually use this 95% of the time I'm listening to music because I can like walk around the house with it. And I have a strap for my bike. And one of the most joyous things for me is putting this thing on Elliptigo. It's that standing bike. It looks really weird, but it's really fun. And I put it on. I'm blasting fish, riding that thing to pickleball. And like every like second of my movement, I'm just like, this is so fun. And it is one of my favorite things that I've bought in a really, really, really long time.
First of all you needed to add was while listening to Brene Brown giving a TED Talk in that whole encapsulated thing of all your favorite things. So my question for you is, have you discovered any patterns in the rotation of tools that you use? We've talked about, or you've, shared with us, and it makes sense that, we'll use a paper calendar and then we'll get bored with that. And we'll use a digital calendar and we'll get bored with that. And we'll do something else. And you talked about having one of the best ways to set that up for yourself is to pre-plan that and know you're going to get bored with this. So what else can you jump to and have it ready to go kind of thing. So I was wondering if you've noticed any patterns in how you do that.
So it's interesting because I have definitely talked about the idea of sometimes you just need to change it up for the point of novelty. And that's a totally valid reason for switching it up because like our brain loves novelty, right? It's like, ooh, that's new. I'll pay attention to that for a while. And what's funny is, so 2 or 3 years ago was the last time I went through like a big tool change on my to-dos. And I was starting to create this whole new thing and it just like wasn't working for me. Then I went back to what I was doing originally. So I've been using Asana for probably the last 3 years or so. And over the last, I don't know, couple months, I would say might put air quotes around using Asana, or it's like it's all there. I'm not really looking at it though. And then I was meeting with Jessica McCabe. We meet each week as we're talking about this virtual summit that we're going to be putting on. And she showed me her Asana, which she had it laid out completely differently. And 'cause we're also talking about things around like being a CEO of a company, right? She's a CEO, I'm a CEO of a company, and it's a difference between that and being a founder or a solopreneur, right? Because like now we're dealing with teams and project management, and so she has the premium version of it, and I never thought I would need the premium version of it. I'm like, oh, I was really inspired by how she had her stuff set up because the model that I have shown before is where we sort of have a project that's basically has all of our stuff in it and it's listed by what do I want to do today and this next week and this month, what do I want to do, and so on. So it's kind of based in time frames. And what I realized is that I actually need to see it in multiple contexts. So I've created a number of different project boards. And the thing I love about Asana is you can have one task living on more than one board. And like if you update one, it'll update the other automatically. So because I have some new novelty stuff too, I can add custom fields. So I have like a drop down. It'll show my time predictions. I have a drop down where it shows effort, the priority of it. And so right now, like it's novel again, and I've definitely been more effective in using that tool over the last at least few weeks since I recently upgraded to the pro version of Asana. So yeah, I mean it's the patterns. I don't know, like it's patterns are funny because like sometimes if you don't wax and wane often enough, you forget that there's a pattern. And it's like, oh yeah, I do this sometimes, right? Because it was like I was like in a weird way, I was acknowledging that I wasn't looking at Asana and all the things I needed to be doing, but like it wasn't registering that I wasn't looking at my Asana, so it was this weird sort of like disconnection between like I know that this is happening, but I like 'cause since I've been recreating my boards, I just feel like I'm so much more on top of stuff, which just always makes me feel so much more calmer and at ease about just everything. So does that help?
It sounds like that maybe not necessarily abandoned patterns, but you have integrated novelty in what has been working for you by acknowledging it and that sort of thing. And it's becoming more sophisticated versions of pattern, I guess. But it's growth too, because then you're still able to use the system you've got because you know it works. Because I know how many times we'll go, but this always works. But this always
Right.
works. But if we're bored with it, it doesn't. So that's really I love that answer because that makes me think a little more broadly into how to use what I'm trying to begin using and to not stray away from it so quickly. Thanks.
What are some of your most memorable interviews?
Hmm. Okay. They're all going to start with like the one where this thing happened. Like I'm not going to remember anyone's name. Um, I think it was episode. Oh my gosh, I have to like look at my website to actually see. Um, I think almost any episode where there was any kind of music involved always stood out to me as like it was just so joyous. Jerry Mills. I think it was like episode 39, maybe. I can't believe I did that. It was episode 39. I mean, that's like, wow. So the episode was "Don't Doubt the Dream." And so we actually recorded it at a chat conference. We like found some room that we totally weren't supposed to be in, and we recorded it. And so it was amazing. Let's see some of the other ones that really stood out to me. I mean, I think all of the episodes I did with Russell Barkley were just what a treat because he is, besides being like the smartest person on ADHD that I think there is, he's just a really genuinely like nice person. And very like he's just a real person. And I actually remember, I think it was the first time I had him on. He got a little choked up because he was talking about his brother, and he has told me that like I'm his favorite show because it's more relaxed than most of the things he does. Um, so that was a really significant one. I think the one that I did, I know I've talked about it a bunch because it's a highly downloaded episode. But it was also a very pivotal episode in sort of my personal growth. And that was the ADHD at 55 miles per hour, where I sort of describe it as an auditory MRI of ADHD. Because it was like I was in the throes of major perfectionism, like workaholism, going to give a presentation after like it was a week where I was getting ready for, I think it was the second or third season of my coaching groups. And I was just like at the office, like every night until like 2 a.m., just like killing myself to like do this stuff. Right. And I was like so committed to like not missing a week on the podcast. Right. Cause I was doing this podcast training. I was in this community and they said the most important thing to do is consistency. And I was like, oh boy, okay, I can do this. Like ADHDs aren't consistent. Oh yeah, I'm gonna show them. Right. And so I created such like a high pressure bar for myself. And so I literally brought my recorder in the car and it was just sort of like stream of consciousness. And I was like, I was very close to not releasing that one. And I think that one really helped me know that it's okay sometimes to not be okay. And the feedback that I got, and I got to tell you, as a person with ADHD who's doing this work, getting so much feedback that people were thanking me for kind of being a mess and for like really struggling. I was like, wait, I could be on the struggle bus and actually it helps people. Well, that kind of works out. So yeah, that was a really significant one for me. What about you? Did you have any favorites?
I
One
think
of
his
the
name is Oliver. Oh, I'm sorry, Brendan.
no, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think his name is Olivardia. Is
Roberto
that?
Lavardia. Yeah.
I like those. Yeah.
Need to have him on again. Brendan?
Crap, I'm forgetting his name. Give me a minute. Oh, come on.
There's a fun one that recently stood out to me. Something Pizza was his last name. That was a fun interview.
I love the one you did with Brene Brown.
Yeah. I guess we're sharing dreams, huh? All right.
That might have been a little too much, Tina.
I enjoyed, you did one with Ryan McRae that the way he explained stuff was nailing everything for me. I was like, yeah, that.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised because he's a very visual like communicator. I'm like, he does a lot of really good analogies. Roxy?
There was one with Dr. Mac or something like that, where he just like gave tools and tricks and strategies. It was just jam packed. And I think it was a really long episode, but I just remember it was new information for me. And I was just sucking it up, taking it all in. That was a good one.
Nice. Xavier?
Greg Hopewell was right before Cat Hoyer, so it was like 397. He is awesome. He was my admin during ARC 25, and man, he has totally owned the acceptance piece, and he is such an inspiring person. And listen to you guys, just like fucking be genuine with each other. I think it's really hard for me personally to find men who like are willing to connect with themselves and be vulnerable and honest and authentic. So seeing you guys show up every day, let alone like publicly on the podcast. Thank you for that.
Oh, thanks for saying that. It is interesting because I think earlier on in my coaching groups, there was one season, I don't remember, it was a while ago, where because usually we do typically have more women than men in each group. And there was one season that we happened to think had like 8 men out of 12 in a group, which is just super unusual. And I remember telling someone, I don't even remember who it was I was telling this to, where I said, wow, it's like they're so like, they just so badly are like needing to express their emotions and like they don't know how to do it. And I forgot who it was. I remember them saying to me, you're a therapist and you're surprised by this. I was like, but I feel like the men that we've been getting in the last several years in our community are just more like, it's like they've done a lot of personal work and are willing to be vulnerable. And it's not this like foreign concept, which is just beautiful because it's like, man, the world of like men don't show emotions. It's like, can we leave that world? Because it's not helpful. We have just as many as emotional needs as women do, right? It's just different. All right.
This podcast is comprised of exactly half and half, men and women.
Ah, look at you. That was some fast counting. Let's do this. Let's take one more quick break. And when we come back, let's brainstorm some ideas on what I might be able to do with the next 400 episodes of this podcast. So we will be right back. November has arrived. ADHD Awareness Month may be over, but the awareness of my ADHD isn't. The International Conference on ADHD is this week, and I'll be there. It starts this week from November 4th to November 6th, and you have a chance to take part in the conference virtually. My topic? I'll be speaking about accountability and how to make it work for you. To register, go to ADHDrewired.com/ADHDcon. There is still time to register, and I managed to get a discount for the listeners of this show who want to register for this amazing conference. You'll get 15% off this incredible conference when you go to ADHDrewired.com/ADHDcon. All you have to do is register by going to ADHDrewired.com/ADHDcon. You'll be redirected to the conference page, and the discount will already be applied. Easy, right? That's ADHDrewired.com/ADHDcon. I hope to see you there. We have so much more we are going to talk about, including an amazing brainstorming session about ideas for the next 400 episodes. But I want to respect your time and attention. So we're going to bring the rest of this conversation to you next week. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening to these past 400 episodes. Can't wait to continue this journey with you. We'll catch you next week. This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find time-stamped summaries and additional resources for each episode. Apply to join our free and secret Facebook community. Learn more about our award-winning intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. Join the Adult Study Hall virtual co-working membership community. Find all the other podcasts on the ADHD Rewired podcast network. Sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else. And use the search tool to find episodes on specific topics. You can do all of this at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click on the Patreon button. If you are a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to you, the listener, but it's not free to produce. Plus, patrons get cool perks like ad-free episodes and access to recordings of coaching calls, and $25 a month patrons can join me once a month for a group coaching call. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. Subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube to see selective interviews and other videos I've made. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends, family, your therapists, your coaches, doctors, siblings, parents. And if you, your coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at the website, ADHDrewired.com. If you're a member of CHAD, ADA, or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this show and all of the shows on the ADHD Rewired podcast network. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. And if you really loved this particular episode, please hit share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I do count on you to help spread this message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other app that supports reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD rewired. Here is my list of must-listen-to audiobooks updated July 2021. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Attached by Amir Levin and Rachel Heller. Atomic Habits by James Clear. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Rest by Alex Sujong Kim Pang. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. I always recommend to my coaches and admin that they read that book. The One Thing by Gary Keller, a required reading for all of our coaching group members. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Baden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And if you're looking for something a little bit more magical, I have fallen in love with the Harry Potter series, and the narrator, Jim Dale, is amazing. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus, all of her stuff is great, starting with Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader, be sure to check out her book, Dare to Lead. Do you have something that you would like to share? Click on the podcast tab at ADHD rewired. Click the button to be a guest at the top of the page and schedule a 15-minute interview. This is Eric Tibbers, reminding you to keep learning, growing, and connecting. Self-care is not selfish. No matter what you get done or don't get done, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. And we don't need to do them in the hardest way possible. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.